Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 199. Today on the podcast, Jen's theme is being civil in an uncivil world. Because the world would be a lot better place if everyone would just get some manners.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast with me, Jen Swanson, the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. The person in front of you drops the door as you're walking into the store. You let someone in line in front of you as you're driving, and the person you let in doesn't even acknowledge it with a wave or anything. You send an email to submit a report that someone is waiting for, and there's absolutely no response, so you don't even know if they've gotten it or not. You post something you think is pretty benign in a social media site, and you get criticized, maybe even viciously, for what you've posted. You get into the coffee room for your break, you're thirsty, you want your coffee, and the coffee pot has been emptied and just left there. You find the toilet paper roll empty in a bathroom stall. Or you see an empty tissue box sitting there and nobody's bothered to pull the other box, a fresh box, out for the person behind them. Or coffee mugs have been taken out of the break room cupboard and used and then just left in the sink, because whoever used them is expecting someone else to clean up after them. These are only some examples of what seems to be an increasingly uncivil kind of behavior generally, and today I wanted to talk about incivility in the workplace and how it can affect work and how it can affect entire organizations. I want to talk about what you can do to maintain civil behavior. I want to talk about when it might be appropriate to be uncivil, because there are times that it is. And I want to touch on the idea of acting versus reacting. And so we'll jump into that last point right after this.
Are you procrastinating? Do you want to start a job search but aren't quite sure where to begin? Is it all just a little overwhelming? At Careers by Jen, we have a 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge to help you get unstuck and move toward finding your dream job. Every day for 5 days, you'll receive an email to your inbox that asks you to complete one task. Every task you complete moves you closer toward your goal. The best part about this challenge is that it's absolutely free. Come over to careersbyjen.com and you'll see the 5-day Jumpstart Your Job Search Challenge on the right-hand side of the screen. Click on the image of Jen, sign up with your email address, and you'll be 5 days closer to reaching your goal. Why wait when you can get busy? Visit careersbyjen.com after this podcast.
Incivility can be contagious, and usually when it is, it's a reaction rather than an action in play. What do I mean by that? Have you ever had someone be rude to you in a place of business and felt the need to just be rude back? Or have you responded in kind to someone's harsh words when they've been harsh to you? It's easy to do, and the reason that it's easy is that it's emotional. And emotions often hijack our brains. And unless we are aware that this is happening, things can be said before we even think about what's going on. The thing is, reacting rather than acting means that you're giving your power away. Your power, your professionalism, your reputation, how others see you. All of these things can be affected if you allow someone else's behavior to dictate your own before you've even had a chance to think about it. Someone has said something, your emotions have taken over, have hijacked your brain, and next thing you know, you're saying something that you later regret, that reflects badly upon you, that you didn't mean to say. So it happens, and that is the acting. That is the reacting rather than the acting. So it's a good thing to be aware of that. Are you jumping in and reacting, or are you thinking about it? Are you allowing your brain to get there first and to think about it before you say something that you might later regret? And the question is it worth being uncivil? Well, I'm going to talk about when it might be a good thing in a while. But first, let's define incivility, and let's look at what some uncivil behaviors might include. So the definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, which my late grandmother said was the only dictionary she would accept when playing Scrabble, and she was an absolute pro. You could never beat her in Scrabble. Anyhow, the Oxford English Dictionary definition for incivility reads like this: rude or unsociable speech or behavior, an impolite or offensive comment. And the Latin origin of the word is interesting. The Latin for incivility is incivilis, and what that means is the piece of the word in means not, and civilis means of a citizen. So you are not of a citizen. You are not part of civilization. You are not part of the norm or the standard if you are being incivil. And so incivility can be a verbal or a written form of rudeness, or it can be displayed in body language, and it can be in behavioral form too. And there are a wide range of behaviors that can be called uncivil, so many that I'm just going to give you a few examples of what being uncivil might look like. So I have a number of them. I didn't count them. I have a number of them that I'm going to share with you now. So the first one is being rude to customers, clients, patients, coworkers, whatever you call them in the place that you work in. Not listening to someone when they're speaking. Using dismissive body language. So waving what they say away, or not dismissing them using just your body language. Interrupting others is a form of uncivil behavior. Talking over others. Excluding people. Purposely excluding people from conversations or situations. Giving people the cold shoulder or the silent treatment. Being condescending in either tone or in language or in gesture. Inappropriately teasing somebody. Insulting someone, especially in front of others. That's a big one. That's very uncivil. Making passive-aggressive comments. Wasting time. This is one that is a real challenge. If somebody is late all the time for meetings, is late on a routine basis, keeping people waiting, interrupting unnecessarily, and wasting time by telling stories that take everyone off topic in a meeting and that don't contribute to the topic at hand. All of these things around time can be seen as uncivil behavior, as incivility. And it can be extremely frustrating if you're trying to get something accomplished and someone is taking up time, in effect, just to hear themselves speak. Or not respecting time by being late all the time and not showing up when they say they're going to show up. There are many things around time that can be seen to be uncivil. Another one is making jokes at someone's expense. Gossip is rude and uncivil. Whispering to one person in front of other people. I used to get very upset with kids when they did that, if they were whispering to one another in front of people. And when adults do it, it's even worse. It's extremely, extremely rude behavior, is to exclude somebody else by whispering to somebody when you're in front of other people. Texting or being on the phone in a meeting or in a conversation rather than giving the people that you're with your full attention. That is uncivil behavior that happens a lot. Withholding information that could help others. Not sharing credit where credit is due. If someone else has helped you on a project and you accidentally forget to give them some credit and you take all the credit, that's extremely uncivil in behavior. Unwelcome asked for feedback, which is actually criticism. So in other words, something said that is meant to be hurtful rather than helpful and is couched or framed as feedback. I've got quotation marks around feedback there because feedback is supposed to be helpful, not hurtful. But when it's the other way around, then it is uncivil behavior. Insubordination is another one. Going through the motions of asking people for their opinions, for input, and then completely ignoring what they offer. That is considered to be uncivil. Putting someone down emotionally, shaming others in a public place, well, at all, but in a public place, or reprimanding or calling them out in front of coworkers or in front of the public, that would be embarrassing, mortifying, and uncivil. Nasty comments online. What does Taylor Swift say? Haters gotta hate. But nasty comments online, and there seem to be so many of them. It feels safe, I suppose, for people to be anonymous and be hiding behind a screen, but it is very uncivil behavior. Insulting other people, and then flat out losing your temper and ranting and causing a scene, which would be definitely uncivil behavior. So that was a big, long list of many examples, and there is no doubt that I have left examples out that maybe you want to add to that list. So let me know if there are any that you want to add. You can tweet your examples to @careersbyjen, and you can maybe put hashtag incivility, and then let me know what I've missed in that long list of things that might be examples of incivility. So how can you manage in the face of what seems to be growing incivility in general in society? Well, firstly, you can't do much about other people's behavior, but you can do something about your own. And I know you wish you could tell people how to behave, and you can't. You can try, but the only people you can change, the only person you can change is yourself. And so taking a look at what you're doing and how you can improve on your own behavior is the best approach to this whole thing. Awareness is the first step to solving an issue. So what in that list that I read, that long list that I read, is something that maybe you do, and how can you work on not doing it? What in that list is something that you resonate with and that you maybe would like to work on and change? It's better, as the old adage goes, to say nothing than to say something that isn't nice. I think the old saying is, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Except that isn't always true. And we're going to talk about that in a minute too. But silence as a communication tool, silence can be a good response to incivility if it's used as a strategy. Sometimes silence is the most powerful of communication tools. And I don't mean by silence, I don't mean not speaking up in a situation where someone's being uncivil to another person in front of you. That's not what I mean. What I mean is if you use silence strategically as a communication tool and just look at the person who has said something uncivil to you and look at them with a question mark in your face, you can sometimes cause them to realize their blunder. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it works. So try using silence and just a pointed stare and see if the person realizes that they have said something that was uncool, that was disrespectful, that should not have been said. The thing is, reacting is often not helpful unless you are in enough control of your emotions that you're able to maintain your professionalism at the same time as speaking or calling the person out on their behavior. So, for example, if you're not comfortable just staring at the person and using silence as a tool, if you don't think that's going to work, then you could say something like, I didn't like the tone of voice I was spoken to in just now, and I don't feel I deserve that. And what I'm doing there is I'm using I language. And if you don't know what I mean, I have a whole podcast episode all the way back in episode 23 on I language. And so what I am doing when I say I didn't like the tone of voice I was spoken to just now, I don't feel I deserve that. When I use that phrase, that sentence, I'm sharing my experience of what that other person did and how it landed for me, how it had an impact on me, how I felt about it. And so using your I language to express your experience of their incivility and how it affected you is often very, very effective. It doesn't always work. None of these things always work. But this would often work if you share how what was said or what was done affected you and how it felt to you. Then often that can be heard by the other person, especially if you're careful in the way you say it. Other ways to respond to some of the uncivil behavior that might be directed at you or at someone you are with would be to say things like, "That wasn't fair," or "That's an interesting perspective," or "I'm not sure why you rolled your eyes at that last statement. I was letting you know my experience of the situation. And I was letting you know that it was real for me." So those are just some ways that you might respond to uncivil behavior, uncivil things that have been said to you or done to you. Of course, the response depends on a lot. It depends on where you are. It depends on who you're with, what kind of power dynamics are at play. Is this uncivil behavior coming from a colleague or a coworker or a manager? Is this person threatening or abusive or just nasty? Will it be helpful to respond or not? Is it worth it? Is this a one-time encounter with someone? It might not be. If it's someone you have to work with every day, then it could be well worth your effort to confront them or to let them know how you felt about the transaction, the interaction. Always make sure when you're going to speak up that you feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then it's better to speak to a manager or a human resources person if there is one, or your employee assistance program if you have access to one. And if the manager is the person being uncivil, is there someone else you can speak to who that person reports to? Is there someone higher up that you can approach to speak to about that? But be careful about approaching someone if you are not going to feel safe about it. It's a good idea to plan what you're going to say. And it's perfectly okay to let somebody know that the way they spoke to you upset you, that you didn't feel you deserved to be spoken to in that particular way. It's perfectly okay to express how you felt about an interaction, as long as you do it respectfully and truthfully, and you do it fairly soon after the event occurred. Now, only you are going to know if the ditch is worth dying in, as they say. I'm using a lot of terrible cliches tonight. I don't know why. Is this person's behavior affecting your own work? Is it making your workplace an unpleasant or uncomfortable place to be? Is it a one-time encounter? Is this somebody you're never going to see again? Or is it a sometimes encounter? Or is this somebody that you see all of the time and you will have to decide how much you can put up with? Some of how you answer that is also going to depend on how assertive you are or not. And it can be a real challenge to speak up and to address uncivil behavior if you are a non-assertive personality. And I know that that's true. It can take courage. It can take guts. It can take a lot of planning. But in the end, it is well worth it. And the other person may not do anything with what you've said to them, but you can at least feel comfortable knowing that you said something and you can try and let it go. So is it ever okay to be uncivil? When could being uncivil be a good idea? Well, we're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about it right after we come back from break.
You've updated your resume, you've sent it out, and you've been selected for an interview. Congratulations! And now you want to get ready, really ready. This is where Careers by Jen can help. We have a comprehensive online course called How to Ace a Job Interview When You Haven't Interviewed in a Long Time. This video-based course is jam-packed with information, advice, and exercises to help you get completely prepared to walk into an interview situation with confidence. From exactly what to prepare in advance, to how to answer common questions, to what questions you might ask the interviewer, and so much more, this course is designed to get you ready. Visit careersbyjen.com and click on Training Resources to see the curriculum, preview a couple of the introductory lessons, and see what others who have taken the course are saying about it. Visit careersbyjen.com and get ready to ace your next interview.
When is it okay to be uncivil? Well, I'm not really sure about when being uncivil in the workplace would be okay, unless it is a case of you feeling unsafe due to the behavior of another person. If you fear for your safety and your well-being, there may be an instance where you have to voice what you need to voice, regardless of whether it's deemed polite or respectful to do so. If somebody's behaving in an unsafe manner, if you're in a working situation where the safety risks are high, then there may be times when, in order to be safe yourself or to keep other people safe, you have to actually yell or rush in to do something to prevent an accident or behave in some way that might be seen as being disrespectful in an urgent or emergency situation. So I can see that being instances where it might call for incivility. Social justice issues. Sometimes incivility might come into play if you're trying to root for a cause. I don't know, this is a hard one because there's so much going on in the world and it's hard when there's a lot of disrespect flying around to say things in a respectful way that will actually be heard. So I encourage you to try. But I do understand that in cases of social justice, in cases of standing up for human rights, in cases of speaking your voice in situations where the only thing the audience will hear is uncivil language, I can see situations where you might be disrespecting someone in the name of a cause. But in normal, everyday workplace situations, there's always opportunity for respectful behavior, for professionalism, for improving your communication, and for calling out behavior that is not meeting the standards, that is not being inclusive, that is not being kind to all of those involved. There are opportunities all over the place if you're paying attention, opportunities to improve how you handle the situation, either from your own perspective of being more respectful of people, of not interrupting, of not talking over people, of listening when you're supposed to be and not getting distracted by texts and things. There are many ways that you can improve your own civil behavior. And also, how are you going to speak up for others when they're, for whatever reason, not able to speak up for themselves in a situation where you witness uncivil behavior? How are you going to come alongside the person who is on the receiving end of that and support them? Or how are you going to call out the person who is being disrespectful? And that takes practice too. It takes practice and it takes courage to speak up in the face of things that are over the line, things that are uncivil. Many workplaces have codes of conduct and behavioral policies in place already, and many managers are taught and expected to model civil and respectful behavior. Organizations can set standards and they can set consequences for those who don't respect the codes. And there's often training in this area. There are often lunch and learns and webinars and different educational programs that can help with fostering respectful workplaces. And so you might work in an organization that has done that or that does that on an ongoing basis. And there may even be policies somewhere that perhaps you haven't paid attention to, but a respectful behavior policy may well be part of the place that you're already working. The thing is, for organizations, loss of civility can lead to decreased productivity. It can lead to a negative work atmosphere. And all of that can lead to more sick time, more stress leave, to higher employee turnover, and to increased recruitment and onboarding time and more costs associated with all of those things. So incivility can have a profound effect on individuals, but also on entire organizations, which is no small thing. It's also far easier as an organization to earn a good reputation than it is to have to go and repair a bad one because of uncivil behavior. And so it's in the best interest of companies to make sure that people are being respectful of each other for their own health and well-being, and respectful of their customers or their client base for the growth and the well-being and the progress of the organization itself. So it's an important topic to consider organizationally and then all the way down to individual working people. It makes me sad to see people so preoccupied with themselves and their own circumstances that it's apparently okay now to be rude or to behave badly or to be disrespectful and in some cases to be really nasty to one another. I think this world needs more compassion. I think it needs more kind acts, more collaboration, more pulling together. You know, our 18-year-old was working at a drugstore for a few months in the summer last year. I can't count the number of times that people were rude to her at the cash, at the till, when she was checking out their order and they're bagging their things. The times that she got yelled at for the store not stocking items that they wanted that weren't available. This is a teenager working her first job in a store, and the adults who are supposed to know better were exceedingly rude and uncivil on a shockingly high frequency, and that's why is that okay? Why is that okay? The divisions and the anger and the rude behavior and the haters, it's tearing us apart. I think each of us can make an effort to bring more civility to our own corners of the world, and I really believe that each person doing their own part can make a difference. It's upon us to try not to react emotionally and instead to try to spread a little more love around. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to Careers by Jen with Jen Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.